Okay, good morning. Let's call the meeting to order. We have Jim is here, Michael K. is here, Sue is here, Bob is here, Mike G. is here, David is here, Mark is here. So we are missing Rob, who is away. Dave, could you vote in Rob's place today? Okay, perfect. We have no visitors today. I guess we have no public comment. So permit applications.
Well, we had one issue at 157 Pilot House Road. This is sort of an interesting back and forth. The homeowner apparently did some work, so this is a after the fact dredge and fill wetlands application, which initially was deemed to be incomplete by DES. And it went to the lawyers, and the lawyers replied to DES. I guess there were some maps missing, things like that. At any rate, last ruling was on the 12th of September that they deemed the application to be administratively complete, and now they're pushing the permit through the normal channels. So it isn't finalized, but at least it's moving forward. And it's an application that had to do with a dock change or update that was not permitted initially, I think. So this is an after-the-fact type of a deal, but that's the only item that I have. We didn't have any other items, no sewage disposal or anything else that came up.
Okay, do we have an update on the Trailhead street number assignment? Just where we are with that, because that's really been going on for a long time.
I was in contact with Kara, and it's still a work in progress. So I'm not sure what all has to be done to get that completed, whether it's something that's held up by the state, or it's just that there's been a lot of work being done and they just haven't gotten around to it. But we did submit all of the GPS information for the trailheads that we had identified as being town property. We can't do, I shouldn't say we can't. We could do the ones for, at least we could give the GPS for the trailheads that are on private property, but it's really something that the property owner should probably request. So we put in for all the trails that are on town-owned property, and Kara has those, but it's still a work in progress.
So we have the Newport Road number assigned for Filbert Crescenti Rog, which we found was quite helpful recently. It helped some people find out exactly where that is. The next one we would like to get is Shaker Street. And, you know, we don't need them all the same day. If we could just do, because we got to build signs, which is going to take time.
Right.
Could you just follow up with her, see if we
I will.
get a sense?
I'll reach out again.
And did we originally fill out driveway permit applications on those?
The grouping that I gave to Kara, we did not do permitting, because I had asked about that. And it was really just a matter of needing to identify where specifically the trailhead is located. So I gave her the actual GPS coordinates for all the trailheads that we had, because she needed then to calculate footage, which is what they base the addressing on. And that's still being worked out, I guess.
I wonder if that may be helpful or necessary, because I think generally the driveway permit sort of kickstarts the street number assignment.
Well, I'll ask, and if it's something that would push things along, then I'll make sure that gets done.
Okay, because I can make, a couple of signs here and there, but I don't want to have to make a dozen of them all at once.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, town-owned lands, conservation easement, monitoring process, and reports. Sue and Mark have been working on that?
Yes.
Sue, update?
Okay, so, well, there's two different things. There's the ones that the town owns that we need to monitor, and there's the ones that Osmond Sargent has the easement on, and they send monitors out. So Mark and I met with Osmond Sargent and went over all of those reports so that you don't get called like 10 times from 10 different monitors. So that's set. Mark and I handled that, and I'm in the process. I pulled out all the packets and looking at the maps for the ones that we have to monitor. And, the ones that we have to monitor, and I will be in touch with everybody to see if they want to do it again or not. And I think hopefully maybe Jim and Don Bartlett also said he would help be a monitor this year. So can get that going in the next month. I will do that before the next meeting, because that's around when we should start in early mid-October.
Okay, Mark, any comments?
One other sort of One other administrative thing we talked about was the benefit of having a central server place to locate copies of deeds and easements, so we could all have access to and refer to those when we do the monitoring. And I know in the past, somewhere on the town server, we have put some stuff. So, maybe that's the location for it, but I think we would need someone to administer, to keep an eye on it and organize the file folders. And so I think that's a good idea. I'm not necessarily volunteering to be that administrator. But, I'll just use Phillips as a case in point, where if we had an online copy of the deed, maybe we wouldn't have been caught by surprise about the no hunting provision.
Now, when you go to the GIS and you look at, for example, Phillips, you see the tax card and the map, but don't they usually include the deed as well? No?
Well, yeah, they often do include the deed, but that's not the place that, we need a central place where we could also store, like, copy of the easement, maybe the monitoring reports, like just a central place. And I don't know how to set that up. I guess we would have to ask Kim.
Well, I know that we do have, in the past, we have made use of such a thing for some of our map files. So there's a precedent.
Do you know anything, Linda, about that kind of stuff? Like if the town lets different organizations have a space on their server?
Yeah, but it's controlled by, you can't randomly go onto the town website and go on the server. Like when I do the minutes, I have to go in there, I put it on a stick. So all that stuff can be put on a stick and brought in, and Kara can download it to the town server.
And then people could see it,
No, it would only be,
whoever has access?
which you guys wouldn't.
Should we ask the question of Chris McAllister about access to deeds? I mean, I look at some things in Sunapee as well, and a lot of those deeds, I mean, it's like the next thing down to click on.
Yeah.
And,
So those get uploaded. So after a sale is copies to you. Those deeds are recorded, and it takes about a month, so if you had a sale in August, those don't get uploaded to the GIS for a month by Chris. She does it 3 times. That job is part of Jen's job. She's land use and assessing work. So she does the deeds, the transfer of
Okay.
deeds, recording, all that stuff. And Cara does part of it too. So I don't know.
So if the deed gets there with the tax card, I mean, that would seem like a pretty logical place to keep it.
It gets uploaded to the web,
Right.
to the GIS. So
Okay.
that property has not been touched for 10 years. It probably won't have a current deed in there. It would.
Well, the deed would be current if it hasn't changed hands.
But it might not be, because this GIS is fairly new. So it would mean going to the hard copy tax file, scanning it, and having Cara or Jen upload it to that.
So if there's no relatively recent
Actually,
ownership, it may not be on there. Okay.
But that's not what we really want. We don't just want to see the deed. We want to have a place where we can, as a conservation commission, can put stuff that we might want to look at, like the map or the deed or the easement or something for monitoring purposes, which would include like putting what we did last year, the monitoring report from last year, so that somebody could go and say, oh yeah, they never could find that spot anyways.
what does, like, Sunapee do you know?
I don't know.
I'll find that out.
And we could do that with a flash drive or with whatever, and just bring it to her and have her put it, but I wouldn't want everybody in the world to have access to look at it, just like whoever has permission from us.
Right.
There is
Where,
lots of new rules with flash drives at the town, because, like, you couldn't just go to Osborne Sergeant and download stuff onto your flash drive, bring it into Cara and download onto that one, because of all the
Right,
drive system.
right.
Like, I can't use, if I go home and use this flash drive in my home computer, they don't allow me to bring it into the town office to do it there, just even for minutes. So I have to use this computer, which isn't hooked to the internet, to do my minutes, and go in and give it to Cara, and she puts them on the agenda and minutes.
Okay, so that doesn't really sound like it's going to solve our problem, but maybe we need to set up our own thing. I don't know, could look into that whole OneDrive,
but Sue,
Dropbox.
if we did that, had our own information, that's not something the world needs to have access to.
Right,
The deeds really should be public,
right,
because in the case of this misunderstanding we've had with Phillips Memorial Preserve, I don't know whether the person who was upset about this actually looked on the GIS website, and that deed is 1980, and there's been...
On the website.
It's not?
No.
Okay. But when you look at the deed, it's clearly, and just to let everyone know, we had a resident who was quite upset to find out that Phillips Memorial Preserve was posted for no hunting. And, I mean, he was really upset about it. And he wondered why. He had talked to Kim and found out that that's managed by the Conservation Commission. And why did we do that? You know, he thought that was wrong, hunting should be allowed. And I explained to him that it was a condition of the gift of the land by the owner at that time. And paragraph 2 specifically says there will be no hunting, no camping, no trapping. I mean, clear. Further down in the deed, it says if this is not enforced, and I forget the exact words, but in a nutshell, it will go to the court and the court will rule to return the property to the original owner. So, I mean, that's pretty clear. So, I mean, that would have, so I guess, I don't know whether, I think he's accepted that, but if he wants a copy of it, we can give him a copy of the deed. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Just to add, I could see, larger purposes for a shared drive, for example, gyms, Messer Pond, monitoring reports. I mean, there's lots of things I think that would be handy to have up in one accessible place.
Right. Okay. We have been asked to,
Minutes from...
oh, sorry. August 21st minutes, the draft version. Do we have a motion to accept? And any edits, additions?
I have two edits, and I'm sitting right next to Linda. The second bullet, last sentence, then what they will be identifying parcels and sending letters to owners. I think that be better stated as then monitoring volunteers will be contacting owners. I don't necessarily know it's going to be a letter, right? And it's not going to be just you and me either. So that's one, and then the second, Linda, under Filbert Crescenti Bog, on third to last bullet, technical assistance grant. The hope is that the list of signs will be at the next meeting. If you just add of signs. So those are my two edits.
Okay. Any others?
I move that we accept the minutes as modified.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. In New London, Arbor Day has been celebrated in October, even though I believe the date officially is April, and I think that was done for a couple of different reasons. It's a nice time of year to have some type of celebration, and Jen and Kara are working on something, and we were asked to participate and if we'd be willing to do a trail hike. And it seemed with the recent activity that's going on with the American chestnut restoration, that it might be a good location to go over to Clark Lookout, take a look at the seedlings and the recent upgrade work that's been done, talk a little bit about the program, how the blight started over 100 years ago and what's been done since, and then take a walk up to the summit, which is a spectacular view of the lake and Mount Sunapee. Relatively easy walk. You never know who might come to something like this. So that seemed like a pretty good program. And we wanted to do that on the 12th of October, which is actually Columbus Day. That's a Monday. And does 10 a.m. sound good? We can get some notices out. Who would like to be there that day?
This is the 12th is a Saturday.
Saturday. Oh, we wanted Monday, didn't we?
Huh, how did that happen?
I mean, wouldn't Saturday be better anyway, because likely to get more participation on a Saturday than a Monday.
Well, that's a good catch, Mike. I wrote that down without looking. So Saturday is the 12th, definitely. And some people, if they're visiting, may be heading back on Monday. So let's do Saturday, the 12th.
The reason it's important is because based on that date and information, I've already given that information to the Intertown Record to put on their calendar,
Oh, okay,
and to the Messenger to put on their calendar,
okay.
and it's on our website.
And presumably it'll go into municipal matters?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's good.
so,
So we're all good for Saturday, the 12th? 10 o'clock?
yeah.
Who can be there?
I'll try to be there.
Okay. Okay, I will try to be there. I mean, I'm guessing it will take hour or so, it shouldn't take too
No,
long.
won't take long.
Okay. Then, have you had any recent conversation with Jen or Kara?
About this?
Yeah, about the date?
No.
Okay.
Oh, to put on the
Yeah,
clerk lookout?
they were going to advertise somewhere, I don't know
Oh.
just where.
I'll.
Do you
I'll
mind
do
talking
that.
to them?
I'll do that, yeah.
Okay, super.
Bob, is somebody going to mow the rest of that field?
Yes, our 3 fields are generally mowed sometime in October, usually later in October. We leave that up to the contractor. He's very concerned about things like nests and pollinators and so forth. And it probably doesn't really matter when it's done, as long as it's done before winter. So he kind of sets the
No, I'm
date,
just
but
thinking
yes.
those last 2 rows are kind of
Oh, yeah,
hemmed
yeah,
in
yep,
by what's happened in growth this summer.
right. So we have the 3, we do Phillips, we do Clark Lookout, and we do Shaker Street. Those are our 3 fields that get mowed. And, depending how it goes next year, we may want to consider like a summer partial mowing or something, depending how much work we need to do in their access we need to have. But, yeah, definitely will be done, and I've already talked to them about it, but we pretty much leave the date up to them. Okay. Mark, do you have an update on the bog walkway?
Oh, sure. Yes, we had our work day on Friday the 13th. We didn't have as many volunteers as we hoped, but we still, I think we did well. We got the entire wooded section wood chipped. We used about half of the 30 yards of chip, so there's another 15 yards or so still there at the side of the road. And, Don and I talked about, of that remaining chips, half of them will continue to distribute in the bog, and the other half, maybe we would move to low plain. So that's
Okay.
what we were thinking.
Okay. And the lumber's here for the railing posts, so I guess Don can put that on his schedule. Okay, it's looking really good in there. And Don's done a tremendous job. And we've had a lot of volunteers. Some of the projects of late haven't been what you might describe as real fun. They've been really hard work, and it's nice to see people come out for that and then come back again. And we're very thankful to our friends at Hypotherm who have several people come down at least a couple times a year to perform their community service day, which is a great help. Anything else on the bog, Mark?
Only to note that Don did relocate one of the benches from Grand Junction to one of the locations we talked about, and a question. Are you going to order 2 more benches for the bog?
We are going to provide benches. We're not quite sure how we're gonna, those kits more than tripled in price. And I need to talk to you about access. I've got some major computer problems, but trying to access those plans, which I can't download. That's a very simple plan to build a 4-foot bench. We ought to talk about that a little bit. But yes, we're definitely gonna provide some of the lumber is cut, and it should go fairly quickly. Okay.
I also want to mention that the piggy bank at the bog has been doing very well. We didn't hand in the money last month because Lynn was away, but last month we took in $182 from the piggy bank, and this month, $161.
Wow.
So that's working out very well in the way of contributions to the upkeep of the bog. So and Linda has volunteered to take the money over to the town hall today to give to Linda.
And we're not actively, for the most part, still soliciting donations, but Mark put another request into Mascoma Bank, and they awarded $3,000 for signage. Mascoma Bank has made several donations. 3, 4?
3 donations.
Yeah, so that's been really significant. They've been great supporters, as have a lot of other people. I think most all the banks have participated at some level, but that's great, and that will cover.
Have you contacted them as far as the thank you letter, or do we need to do that yet?
I have not. And they had said the check, expect it 3 to 4 weeks before we even get the check.
All right, when that comes in, let me know so I can get a letter out to them.
Okay, although I
Or-
imagine it'll go to the town office. I may not know when the check arrives.
Okay.
Oh, we will know.
Somebody will,
Yeah.
somebody will
Oh,
let us
yeah.
know. All right.
Yeah. But, right, and I think that's right, Mike, something like this warrants a letter and not just an email. You know, maybe a couple different people are copied on it, depending.
Yeah,
how it was.
I just want to make sure the right people get the letter so they know that we we acknowledge it and
Yeah,
appreciate
exactly.
it. Yeah.
That's a very generous donation.
Yeah, it is. All the other donations that have come in, by the way, letters have gone out to all of those folks. So we have currently in this, I'm calling it Phase 4, but only for record-keeping purposes, but the monies that have come in since we closed out the Stage 3 of the project, if you will, we're sitting at over $7,000 right now.
Good.
So that's working out pretty well.
Well, fortunately, we have completed the aluminum work, which is the real expensive part of the walkway, but there's still some woodwork and railing to do, so this will be very helpful.
And lumber prices being what they are, it's not cheap to
No,
to get that work
and
done.
especially where this is a wider, more substantial walkway, it takes more lumber, more time.
But I think people, all of the feedback has been so positive
Right.
that that project is really a major improvement to the trail system, and certainly to the bog.
Okay, let's talk about the American Chestnut Foundation, specifically the Vermont, New Hampshire chapter. We had a workday last Saturday scheduled to mainly update 2 of our 3 restoration test site seedlings. We have been working on this project now for about 6 years. And originally, we started by purchasing seedlings from the Foundation National Office in Asheville. And they contract a nursery in Georgia to grow seedlings. And we bought seedlings for 2 years, and I'd say had limited success. They're bare root. It took them a long time to get established, but they're coming along now. But then COVID arrived, and all of those operations were shut down. So we had no seedlings. And we worked with the Vermont, New Hampshire chapter, who was collecting their own seeds or nuts. And they donated to us on actually 4 different occasions, seeds, and some were real good. The ones we got last year, they gave us 30 seed nuts when they came down here for their annual meeting at the library, and that was late May. And we put those in starting pots, and they grew pretty well, and we had about a 85% germination rate. And we had those planted this last Saturday. The ones before that, we started from nuts, and these do require protection in terms of matting for weeds and wire to keep critters. A lot of different creatures like these nuts, and so they need a wire cage. And unfortunately, we, kind of did the best we could without spending a huge amount of money. And it was sort of functional, but not great. A lot of them weren't as high as they should be. The Vermont, New Hampshire chapter, when they were down for the annual meeting, visited our sites, and they offered some help to enhance our efforts and to work closer with them. And long story short, what they proposed is they would provide professional wire, 6 feet high, heavy-duty metal posts. We were using grade stakes that only last 2 or 3 years before they rot, matting, and people to do this work. So on Saturday, we planted 20 new seedlings down at 22, counting, those others, down at Shaker Street, and put down new matting and cages. The cages are 4 feet diameter. They're big, in anticipation of these things growing. And we talked about that. Do we use smaller ones now and then replace them later? It seemed to make sense just to put the size we need down now. So we did that. The bottom line is here, these people work pretty hard. We had 18 volunteers between Vermont, Elkins Fish and Game, Nature Group, a couple of people. It was a good turnout. Some were experienced doing this, some were not, but everybody worked hard, and there was a lot to do. The Vermont, New Hampshire chapter donated enough material to do about 50 or half of our seedlings. And that was 3 posts per plant, 13 feet of wire to make the cage, the matting, and the labor. And they donated all that. And when you look at roughly what it costs to properly cage a seedling, it's more than $40. So times 50, it gives you an idea of what their commitment was. And the plan was to do half and half. We'd do half of them this year, the other half next year. And they're all ready to schedule a date for next year. They were very pleased with the way it turned out. They hosted a cookout that we held at Elkins Beach, which was really nice. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't stay for that because it was a long day. But these folks are very professional and very dedicated, and we are very grateful to have, a level of support like this. They look good now. The ones that are in new cages look good. We have some trees that are actually a couple of feet above the 6 foot. In the new cages, they just look a lot better and bigger. So we are making progress. They do grow slow. But, we have a few. Some of them are still very small, but we have some good-looking trees in place now. Mike, you were involved more with the planting, the soil conditions, and running back and forth, and I know some of us were cutting wire, making cages. I was moving material back and forth between the two sites, and I didn't get to see the preparation of the soil and so forth. Can you just quickly give us an overview on that?
Every plant that we put in had the same process. So it was pretty good because we got down to doing it, each hole was done the same way. I mean, I should also mention the holes were already dug for us, and they were pretty much at the exact depth that was needed. So what we were shown, Dan Jacob was the one that was kind of leading us in doing that. We put some fresh soil into the hole. Then we took the plant, which was still in a pot, the long, narrow pots, and then you put it in the hole to make sure that where the top of the soil was in a pot is equal to the top of the soil of the hole. So in other words, you want to be ground level with the plant, not above it, not below it, but right at ground level. That's what they told us to do. So then you put a little bit of potash into the hole, poured in about 1/3 of a gallon of water. Then you took the seedling out of the pot and tried to maintain the, the soil as best you could, and then laid the plant down into the hole, filled all the way around it with the fresh soil, mixing it with the soil that came out of the hole. Then once that was firmly in, another 1/3 of the water went on top. Then a little bit of fertilizer went on top. Then we put on the mat, planting mat. Then on top of that, we put the mulch, bark mulch, and then the rest of the water. And that happened on each and every one of the holes. And it went pretty fast because it didn't take, much time at all since the holes were already there. And the trickiest part was trying to get the plant out of the container without having all the soil fall away, but most of it was pretty firm enough that you could slide it out and get it down into the hole. So that was the procedure.
So then you drove the 3 stakes.
Then we put, then once that was all done with the, bark mulch down, then 3 posts went in, and then we cut we did 12-foot lengths, but at any rate, we cut the wiring, put that around, wired it up, and we were done. So, I mean, mostly it was done in stages. We did all the planting while the other stuff was being cut on the existing plants, obviously the driving in the stakes and getting that ready. But it was a good process. I mean, the whole thing went very well. We had enough bodies at Shaker Street to make it go fairly quickly. And as far as the cages went, we didn't we were not able to put a cage on, a new cage, a 4-foot cage, I should say it that way, on every single one, but we did manage to get one full row completed, and then we were able to put cages, some of the older cages, on the new plants.
Right.
So every new plant has a cage on it of some sort, but about half of them have the permanent cages, which are the posts with the 4-foot circle of wire, fencing.
So we have the planting, and then of the existing 12 that were there, we got about half of them upgraded?
Yes,
Because we ran out of stakes and wire, which we knew would happen.
yep,
Clark Lookout, the 30 are pretty much done. We need to add a little bit of mulch over there, and and we were short 2 cages. We're going to repurpose a couple smaller ones, but other than that, they're all brand new. We used a lot of wire over there.
Yeah, we still have, there's still soil and, I don't know what you want to call that,
Wood chips.
loam or whatever, but the
Yeah, oh,
mulch,
okay.
mulch is there, and there's soil there and mulch
Yep.
there still.
Yep.
And then we have, some of the posts are there, still have some posts on site, but, yeah, that project needs to have another, I'm gonna say, at least one more roll of wire. I'm not sure how, I think it's 100 feet in a roll, is that right?
Yes, yes.
So, we'll probably minimally need 1 roll of wire, but probably 2, I'm gonna guess, to get everything
Yeah.
the way it is. But at least we do have some fencing up on the bulk of the plants, and on the ones that weren't done with the big fencing, we do have a cage around the
Right.
plant.
So with
Let-
22 planted at Shaker Street and 30 at Clark?
No, Clark had no planting. Clark was just redoing the
Upgrading.
caging, updating the caging on the plants. Shaker was where we did the planting. We did 22 new plants,
And there were 12 existing.
and there were 12 existing, yeah.
I have a question. I think we're out of posts.
State your name.
I think we're out of posts, because when I got done pounding everything that was there, I was glad. So I'm not sure, I don't think there's any more posts, and we had still more plants to go.
We, I don't know what happened. The distribution of wire and posts got a little bit out of balance, but we have enough posts. We finished the posts at Clark Lookout. We were short 2 cages, but we're going to repurpose a couple of the smaller ones because they're smaller plants. They'll be okay.
Yeah.
We have 22, I believe, unused posts.
Yeah. My count, we have at least 5 or 6
Yeah.
that never got posts.
And we will put those in down at Shaker Street because that's
Yeah.
where we need them. And we looked at wire. I mean, these folks donated a lot to us. And they got a tremendous deal on this. They actually ended up getting it at Runnings. But I contacted them about, let's get 1 more roll and kind of finish up what we got. And for some reason, it's 6-foot wire. It's kind of a seasonal thing. They don't have it.
Oh.
And I checked another supplier in Claremont who has the exact same wire, exact same brand, and it's more than twice the price.
Oh,
So we may want to hold off on that. I think we can get by with what we have, and then, finish it next year.
next year?
I should mention, Dawn worked very hard. This Dawn, Dawn Osler.
Don Osler, yes.
he was at the wood chip hauling day on Friday the 13th, and then he came back and worked on the chestnuts on Saturday the 14th, put in a long day, and we really appreciate that help. We'll get a lot done. And
Just, I mean, just when we were talking,
can you turn this?
sorry, just a quick, when we were pounding fence posts, I think we noticed at Clark Lookout that the pounder was falling apart at the end of the day. You might.
Yes, one of the
Yeah.
people, and I'm not sure who it was, one of the volunteers brought that down to the picnic because he picked up the cooler and some things that were there. And he said, I think this is broken. And it was amazing because that end cap in a piece of pipe, one might think that would be welded, but it was held in place with two little pins and it broke. So I returned it to where we bought it. And they no longer carry those, but they gave us our money back. And with the comment, it looks like you've been hitting on this. Well, that's the whole idea, yes. So we have another one, spring-loaded, that we'll have to check out. But yeah, that was kind of funny. But we had 150 posts, so that was a lot of pounding. So that was a great project.
Bob, just a question. When we took off the old wire, a lot of it was very close. In fact, the trees were growing into it. Is there any way that we could, with the old wire, kind of put two of those wires together to get the fencing farther away from the seedling?
Yeah, I mean, we've learned a couple of things. When we were doing this, we were really trying to do it without spending any money,
Yeah.
which is hard to do. And two things we learned is that half-inch mesh material, or they refer to it as fabric, but it's wire, half-inch squares, may keep out little critters, but it's not good for the trees because a tree or a leaf will go
Yeah.
through and then it's a branch and you either got to cut the wire or cut the branch off. So that finer mesh wire doesn't work well.
But we got it off, but you could see that the seedlings had penetrated it.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm wondering if we could use two instead of one and just make it
Oh,
a
make it
bigger
bigger,
circle
sure. But
around them.
I think we're in a position now where we have enough bigger wire. Like we threw all the chicken wire away because that's a
Junk,
hazard,
yep.
just trying to work with it. I think we're pretty well covered. Some of them are short, but at least they're a cage.
But I'm just, if we made it much bigger,
Sure.
then that would still keep,
Well, some of the people were debating whether we should make them 3 feet or 4 foot diameter. And ultimately, some of the guys that were there have been doing this for a while, and they said, you're really better off making the big one now.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to have to make another one later. And, maybe patch on another 25%. So we're going to check that. We know over at Shaker, we need to add more mulch. We didn't put it out far enough or thick enough. I was surprised at Shaker, they had put it down about 4 inches thick in places. I mean, it was really thick. And they told us, they said, make it 6 inches if you want. And we've always put in like a couple, but the thicker it is, the better it's going to prevent weed growth. So, overall, Mike, you spent a lot of time there doing a lot of different things. Any comments on the day?
I thought it went well. I thought it was a very congenial group, and people kept at it. It wasn't as though you had 3 or 4 people sitting around drinking soda. Anybody that took a break, took a 2-minute break, and we're back at it.
Yeah, serious group,
Yeah.
yeah. Don?
So I got a serious case of poison ivy there. And I don't know if it came from the mulch, because I was doing a lot of mulch. You know, I was shoveling the chips and things, moving them into place. And I know while we were planting, excuse me, you know, I had gloves on most of the time, but I didn't. So I know you can see poison ivy there, but I'm also wondering if it's in the wood chip. So you have to be very careful, I think, if you're handling
Now,
that
you
stuff.
were at
Shaker Street.
Shaker Street. Well, I think there is poison ivy there.
Oh, yes, you can
Yeah,
see it on the
And of
ground.
course, it was mowed, so
Yeah.
it's probably harder to see it.
All over it's all over the place too, if it's mowed, yeah. So anyway, that's just my thing, is you gotta be careful. I'm
Yeah.
on steroids and all that stuff, so.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I get it pretty bad when I get it, so, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, Dave, do you have any comments about the day?
No, it's fun and very good. It was, I think, just echoing everyone else's comments, it was a great group, hardworking, and a lot more. I didn't think it was all going to get done, but it did. We ran out of materials, and that was the
Yeah.
big limit.
Yeah. No, it was really, nobody was leaning on a shovel watching. They were all working, so, and that was good. We had one fellow, he was telling me, he's a retired school teacher, 86 years old, and he's out there, helping to do what he could. Nice fellow. But and he came from Peterborough, so some of these people came a ways, because this is the two-state chapter, so great group. All right. Anything more to report on the Junior Trail Patch program, Mike? I know you've been working on a logo. Are you prepared to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I was playing around with some software to put together a logo that we could use for a different trail patch. And the first thing I did was to work on Conservation Commission logo, which just to try to build something. So New London Recreation Department had passed this over to me. That was from Putnam. They had something that they were just putting together, which I like the idea of having something graphic that represents the program. So I started with playing around with a logo for the Conservation Commission, because we don't really have one. All we have is the trail patch picture, basically, which is a boot with some background. So anyway, something like that. This doesn't have to be the thing, but this is the idea of like putting something together, okay? And the same thing would happen with the trail patch, although I'm thinking of making it maybe on a shield for the junior kids, and something similar to these graphics, to put that on there so that it's representationally giving a visual viewpoint of a hike without being too, how should I say it? I don't want to make it seem as though the hikes are being done out in the forest or something. I mean, these are fairly well manicured trails. But anyway, I'm looking at free imaging, different icons for different things, and this was just the first iteration of trying to put something together. But I will be putting something together, and I will have everything finished by the next meeting.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to probably move ahead with getting stickers, which was recommended by Putnam, to have that in lieu of having patches, which he didn't think were appropriate for children, that they wouldn't really care to have patch, so we would go with a sticker. I took a look at a couple of companies that make stickers on a roll. You know, you can get them in different sizes. Maybe we can talk about that now, but most of them are, you know, maybe not any bigger than 2.5, 3 inches around. So cost of, you know, less than $100 for a roll of stickers. And let, you know, if you look at the number of people that complete the hiking patch program every year, I mean, we don't do more than, I don't know, 5 to 10 every year. So if you got a roll of stickers, you probably have them for quite a while. So I think that that would be the way to go with that.
But that wording would be something so it was jointly recreation, conservation?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. And color?
Oh, yeah, in
Yeah,
color,
okay.
definitely in color.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
perfect.
Yep.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
One thought or question. Does the logo want to include some town branding? You know, for example, the town has the, you know, that seal. And maybe it's a question for Kim, but I would think, you know, all the town departments and commissions might want to have some uniformity to their logo. And, you know, maybe the town seal is the way to capture that.
Do you mean make it look like the seal? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, I may perhaps include the seal in the logo. I mean,
Well-
you look like what you've got has a couple of different images. Maybe one of the images is that.
We could put that maybe on our logo, but I just don't want to make it too terribly busy, because if you put
Yeah.
that, I mean, we want to keep it fairly simplistic. I was even thinking of actually getting rid of one of these images, and after I printed this, Bob made a suggestion to put in the established in 1965 on here, which I did. So I might even take one of these things off, so it's not terribly busy, because if it gets too busy, then you kind of lose the
That's the
whole
problem.
point of it. You know.
The problem with a seal, that it really has a lot of detail. And if it's small, it's really hard to see,
Yeah.
you know, with the building and all that stuff on there. But that's a great start, Mike. Let's take a look next meeting.
Yeah, I'll
Mike-
bring some stuff next time, and then maybe we can get it finalized then.
I'm just wondering, you know, what would a kid do with a sticker? I mean, I'm thinking of getting punched for what we're doing. A T-shirt a kid would wear, and if we're only talking about doing not very many a year, probably fewer than 10, then you can get a T-shirt probably for $6 or $8 a piece. And a kid would wear that around town, probably wear it to school. And then we're getting publicity. But I'm just afraid that a sticker, I don't know what a kid's going to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a suggestion that came from Putnam. Originally, we talked about a patch, and his feeling was the kid's not going to sew a patch on a backpack.
no, I mean, we're not either.
So he says stickers are really popular. So, but there's a good point. I think we have to look at work T-shirts for the members as well. But I don't think you get a decent $6 T-shirt anymore. They're quite a bit more than that.
No,
However,
I've looked into shirts, because our club does T-shirts. You know, we send kids to camp, and we give them club T-shirts when we send the kids to camp.
What do you
buy
paying for?
them, and you buy them in bulk, but, you know, the problem, quite frankly, is that we have to buy X amount
Yeah.
to, you know, there's a minimum number you can get, number
your-
one, if you want to have a decent run of shirts. Secondly, you know, how many smalls, how many mediums, how many
Oh,
large,
yeah,
how many
I've
extra
been
large?
there, I've done it.
So you're better off, really, I mean, if you're talking about apparel, quite frankly, in my opinion, you're better off doing a hat. because everybody can wear a hat, and you can, have the types that's adjustable band, and it's just one thing, and you get it done. Doing shirts is very difficult, and
No, you're
especially
right,
the
yeah.
small number that we would have, where you're going to keep the shirts, and then, if you wind up having all larges being taken, then the next time you have to order another 20 or 25 shirts, then what do you do? It's kind of cumbersome, really. So to me, if you're going to do apparel, better off with a hat. But that being said, Putnam was the one that suggested the stickers from a kid's perspective. Or, you mentioned water bottle, but those are kind of pricey
Yeah.
also.
No, they put the stickers on it.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that if you wanted to do something other than a sticker, maybe a water bottle, but, you're starting to get kind of pricey. I mean, really, the reward should be the fact that they're getting, an acknowledgement and maybe a certificate along with a sticker or something like that, but, I don't know that anything other than those items would be that cost-effective for us. In other words, with our budget, I don't know spending a lot of money on apparel is a good idea, especially for the small numbers that we're talking about.
Should we try to settle on whatever our image is going to be, and then maybe talk to Putnam some more about it?
Yeah, let's do that.
Get his ideas?
Sure.
But, yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. Okay, do we have, Don Bartlett is not here, but do we have any update on the invasive knotweed project at Low Plain?
Well, right now, it's at the Overlook is where that project was done. And currently, everything that's been covered there, it's all holding up very well because it's quite a thick matting of the bark mulch that's at that location. So last time I was up there, which was just last week, it's holding up very well. The plants that were taken out were put to the side to dry out. So my understanding was that Don's plan was to take that out at some point coming up either by the end of this month or next month to get rid of the plants that are drying out, assuming they're dried out. Now, if they're not, then they'll just stay there until, they become inert or whatever you want to say. Because you can't get rid of them while there's still any moisture in them, because then you have a chance that you're going to spread that plant around. But once they're laid out and dried out and totally dead, if you will, then they're safe to get rid of, and that would be the next step. But that would be the only step that's needed, is to get rid of the removed plants.
Okay. Don?
So, related to that, I was contacted by the New London Garden Club, and as you know, they do volunteer work to always maintain all the gardens, and apparently some of those members want to go up and get involved with the knotweed program in some respect or another. So I have sent them off to Don Bartlett, and he has the contact. So however that might happen, whether they just go up there monthly and cut everything down, what they see or something, but that's just a little update there.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there is thought, maybe even the start of a plan for doing more next year. Because you know how many square feet they covered?
I don't remember the square footage, but I know that a lot of the area that was covered is on the flats, and what Don and the other crew from the college had talked about was to try to get further out along the perimeter, which then goes down towards the water.
Right.
And that would be the next phase of this project.
Okay.
So I guess the problem with this project is that it takes years and years and years for it to come to its conclusion. And yes, the idea was to try to expand it out to the next part of it, which would be the edging along the water, or heading towards the
Okay.
water.
I think as we have discussions about doing more work next year, we have to be very mindful that we have a full understanding of what we're getting into. Because originally, and I know a lot of different people, groups were talking about this, and, it's wonderful the work we can do to control the invasives. However, the term grant really needs to be defined, because I think a lot of people just assume that a grant means money. And in the case of this, there was no money. And we found ourselves in a position where we had to buy fabric. Chips were donated, and we thank Conway Tree Service for that. And there were a few other expenses, but we just need to go into this eyes wide open and understand what we're getting into. And we're going to be talking about budget. This is the time we should be budgeting something for this. But we kind of got caught where, we did it, but we spent money that we hadn't planned on spending. Okay, I think some good news. The infamous parcel 088-006 on the east end of Low Plain, I believe we're making progress, but as you know, it's going on 2.5 years that we had a purchase and sales set up, and we made our deposit. And we still have no deed because of the problems with definition of the parcel. Well, an old plan was discovered, as we discussed at last meeting, a survey plan that clearly defines the lot. And on that drawing, I guess one of the reasons this drawing was done, or survey was done, is there was a proposal for an easement right next to that. And that never really developed into anything, and the survey plan was never recorded. So there's a really good definition of what the lot is, that everybody agrees is a proper definition. That has been reissued by the surveyor, who actually still had this electronically, because it was done 20-some odd years ago. That survey has been recorded, so it's now at the Registry of Deeds. So the next step is that definition plan of the parcel that we would like to purchase really should have been fixed by the owner, but that didn't happen. But at any rate, that registered deed survey has gone to the property owner's attorney. And the next step, I believe, is to get the abutting neighbor to approve it, which they have approved several times verbally, and then get a new deed drafted. That is done by the owner. So that's where we are. I mean, we could be very, very close, but the owner has to take the ball and run with it, to get their attorney to create a new definition of the parcel. So we're ready to close. We've had the money set aside for going on 3 years. They have our deposit, and I'm sure hoping we can, I don't want to be overly optimistic, because so many times we thought we were within days of closing on this and it didn't happen. So hopefully the owner will be really motivated to get this completed and the sale can be closed. Bog Road wetlands 119,002, also known as the Clark Creek area. You have just returned, Jim. Do you have any plan within the next couple of weeks or time to take a look in there?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Okay. Where we are
So
right
yes, I
now-
was gonna take a canoe down and take a look at the work that Josh did and see
Yeah.
if they've rebuilt.
Apparently, there were 4 areas that he cleared.
Okay.
And, the water was at about 0.7. It dropped to 0.6, that's feet. And I looked at it this morning, driving in here, and it's just a little bit above 0.5. So that's a half a foot, so there's 6 inches of water in the culvert. I mean, that is really low. And as a property owner and resident on the pond, I've been watching my shoreline for a long, long time. And there are rocks and things, and further out in the pond, rocks that we haven't seen visible for 20 years. So the water right now is low, and there's been no rain. All of the tributaries, with the exception of County Road, are pretty much dried up. The water is moving out very, very slowly, but it is moving. So if we're not familiar with that, we ought to take a look, but we need to have a consensus. Are we happy with the present situation? In my opinion, the water could be a little bit higher and everything would still be fine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be 2.5 feet higher. And I think the way we left this with the Protective Association is that we would be monitoring this, doing maintenance work as needed, and we're going to watch this thing. Some of those people have great plans to dredge. And, I don't know why, what you're going to dredge. I mean, there's only 6 inches of water in the culvert.
I know.
You know,
It worried me when I heard it that
Yeah.
it could actually be detrimental to the
And
pond.
apparently, they have had some discussion with DES about permitting, and I don't know. Does anybody think dredging is necessary?
I don't.
No. And as,
If they were to do that, that would be their nickel, right?
well, there's a lot of decisions to be made. I mean, that would take a DES permit, it would take permission from the town, because it's town land. And, why dig up something and disturb something? Remember, there's a sign there that says natural area. So we don't want to have to disturb anything unnecessarily.
But they wouldn't be looking to us to finance this dredging.
Certainly not if we don't think it needs to be done. Things could change. We're going to watch this. Maybe
Yeah.
there'll be blockage, or we're going to have problems. We'll have to get in and do more removal. But our service provider has agreed to go in every few weeks, check things out, and clear. The water isn't moving because there isn't much water, and it is, if you look at the outlet of Clark Pond, there's almost nothing coming out. And there's also discussion by the Protective Association. They feel as though clearing needs to be done on the county road end. And, we've talked that, and Jim, you actually had a discussion with DES about that?
I did.
Yeah, and.
Chief
I mean,
biologist of DES thinks it's a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah. So, the Protective Association had an engineering study done, which makes some recommendations, but that's not our Bible. It's a recommendation, which apparently DES looks at a little differently. So, I don't see any urgency right now to do anything other than continue to watch what's going on. And, we're probably gonna have some fall rains where the water's gonna come up quite a bit, but we know due to the size of the watershed that it doesn't recover overnight. It takes a few days.
Right. That's
that's-
true of most.
Yeah, that's normal.
Right.
So if everyone's okay with that, let's just continue to observe and monitor, and we've been keeping the selectmen advised of what's going on. The other thing that happened there is, I think we heard last meeting, there was a swimming pool company that came and pumped water from the Messer Pond side. And that, of course, is state property. And they took out, I guess, several loads of water to a customer up on Maple Lane that was filling apparently a very big pool. And in checking with DES, there is really no requirement for permitting to do something like that. My concern, and the Protective Association has lake hosts there quite a bit, is my biggest concern was, where has this pump been last? And are there weeds or, I don't know. But that would be my concern, and they were not using the fire department's dry hydrant. They had their own pump, and they just put a hose in the water. So it seemed relatively harmless. I did talk to them about when they break suction, if they could drain the hose out on the pavement so it didn't erode the bank and wash sand in, and that all seemed okay. Then it was observed and reported by a number of people that there was another pump there on the other side, which is town water, town land. And it looked like the same pump that the pool guy had, but it wasn't the pool guy. It was a lawn care company. And they were hauling water for hydroseeding. And I didn't see them actually pump, but the guy was there, and there was a lot of that green-blue seed stuff all over the ground. So whatever they pumped into must have had a lot of the seed over it. And that was, I'm sure that's got chemicals and all kinds of good stuff in it. So we did finally talk to that person. They had no idea that it was town land and that it might be appropriate to contact the town office and ask about, they were on town land. So they were advised. The guy said he didn't know, but, sometimes when you don't know, it's good to ask. So I think he understands, but at any rate, the Protective Association apparently contacted DES and said, we have a big problem. And DES explained that it was town land. And, you ought to talk to the town about it. And they actually sent some photos of signs, that said pumping isn't allowed and so on and so forth. So the Protective Association was saying we ought to get some of these signs. And, I don't know how everyone feels about this. I'm really not big on a lot of signs. And, other than identifying our properties and so forth. But to put up a bunch of big signs, they have signs on the other side about don't feed the ducks and all that stuff. But, and is it really a problem? We have one incident. And, the guy's been notified. And I don't know, does anyone think we should get signs and put up signs there?
I don't think that's a great idea. We're sitting in a situation where aesthetically, the more signage that goes up, the more it detracts from the area. But over and above that, if DES allows it, is that correct? They don't have any rules against it, then how can you put up a sign that says you can't do it if, in fact, you can do it? I don't get that part of it.
I
you know.
guess the issue is they're on town land.
Yeah, DES rules do allow it, but you do have to have the landowner's permission.
To have the truck sit on the, wherever it's sitting.
Well, to put the,
And
Hose it.
you're crossing somebody's land to get to the water.
Okay, but if they were on state property doing it, then there's no.
Unless they're pumping a
issue.
very large volume, they don't need any kind of permit per the E DES.
Okay, well, I don't know,
Well,
I
I
think
think
for,
you're-
you know, I don't know how often this gets done, but I wouldn't think it's very often. And to put
Well-
up signs just for one incident, I mean, maybe we should just keep an eye on the situation,
Yeah.
and then if there's a report of it happening in the future, we can revisit the issue, but I'd be inclined to table it. I don't think putting up more signage, this is my 2 cents.
Right.
I don't think it's a great idea.
the other thing, to your point, is if you put up a sign about pumping water, that kind of establishes the area as a good source of water. So you might almost be inviting more people, I don't know. But, yeah, I've been there for 60 years, and I've seen a couple of people pump water over the years, but it isn't like they're lined up, and so if we're in agreement, we'll watch the situation. If it changes, then maybe we need to do something, but we don't see a great need to do anything right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see, we did that. We did that, volunteer, thank you. We did, that card to Bob Harrington has been signed by everyone who's here? Okay. We were looking for, Mark and Don and I got together yesterday to talk about a few chestnut things that needed to be done, and we had actually 2 lumber orders delivered, scheduled to be delivered yesterday, and they weren't there in the morning, which is understandable. And I was beginning to wonder a little bit about 5 or 6 o'clock, because when LaValle says they're going to do something, they pretty much do it. Well, sure enough, I had some work I had to do in my shop, and I heard this backup alarm, which I hear on the highway, but I mean, this was really close. And it was the crane truck backing out. They had dropped the 2 loads. I mean, this was well after 6:30, so they had a long day, but it's there. And I'll talk to you a little bit. They're both orders are out back, so we can restack and transfer, you know, whenever it's convenient. The other big thing, budget time. I got a notice a couple days ago from Kim. They want the budget done by mid-October. You know, usually it's a little later. And that's going to be before our next meeting. So we need to review our needs, special projects. And I'd like to ask, would anybody like to work on the subcommittee? I mean, we can look at last year's. You know, a lot of it we're going to want to do again. But are there other things we want to add? You know, we spend not a lot of money, but there are certain organizations that we belong to. One of the biggest ones, cost-wise, is the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions. And I mean, they do a lot, but it's a big number that, by our definition. And then we support other organizations in a much smaller way. So that's one thing to look at. And then we have intern labor, which is a big item, and then materials, which is largely lumber, some other things. But it'd probably require a couple of meetings before next meeting. Anybody want to be involved in that? Don't all speak at once?
Well, I don't want to speak for him because he's not here, but didn't Rob work on some of this last time because he was on the, I believe he was on the budget committee?
That was, I believe that was more to do with the land acquisition
Is that what it was?
part of
Okay.
it, but I don't think he got involved in the operating budget.
Okay,
It's just, I'll see if Kim has a template. I think she does, which I don't have. I got a real computer problem, so I'll have to get stuff like that printed. Do you have any records of last year's budget?
probably someplace.
I have them, I just
Yeah.
can't get to them.
Yeah, yeah, well,
I mean, but it's really pretty straightforward.
let me contact Rob. Do you know when he's coming back? I'll get in touch with him.
No, I don't know.
Because maybe he'll be willing to work with me, and maybe we can do that together.
Okay. But, we should probably have an initial meeting within a couple of weeks, and then,
Yeah, let me dig out, I'm almost positive I have last year's info.
and then the other thing, which is not part of this request, this is our operating budget, but I always mention land acquisition, which they don't want to hear, because that's a warrant article, that comes later. The other thing, and I didn't get clear definition on it, that Adam is working on, is like a 10-year plan spreadsheet. And I don't think, and it's for capital improvement, which, we don't really have. If there was anything that came close to it, it might be Filbert Crescenti Bog. That was, it's a project that's going to take place over a number of years. And we didn't do it that way. We did private funding. So I don't really think we have anything that qualifies for that. But we should talk about land acquisition. Last year, it didn't get approved at the initial request, and we did a petition, which, is not a lot of fun. You don't like to do that because you obviously are not seeing eye to eye on something, but the one we did in the past was hugely supported by the voters. So we settled on 35,000 rather than 50, but I'll have to get an update, but there's 300 and some odd thousand in that fund, which is a lot of money, but we know when it comes to a land acquisition, I mean, it's not going to be $100,000. It's going to
No, it could be one purchase,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's done.
Yeah. So we should be thinking about that and how we want to do it, whether the selectmen and budget would approve, a warrant article for 50,000. Hopefully they would, but I think we have to keep that going. But
Yes, absolutely.
right now, we need to do the operating budget, so I'll check back with you. And I don't know when Rob is coming back.
Well, let me at least get started on it and try to get that process rolling.
Okay.
Add to that discussion, when we increased our operating budget by 28.4% last year,
Say that again?
our operating budget increased by 28.4% last year, and I know that we sort of sold it as a one-time bog
Right.
thing. It would sure be nice appearance-wise if we could decrease our budget back down towards what the, 24 budget was.
Yeah, I'm not, again, we got to look at projects and what we want to do, and a lot of it is trail expense. I think the days of an $18,000, $20,000 budget, if we're going to have a trail intern and do all this other work, that number's not going to work. We asked for approximately an extra 10,000. That was reduced, as a lot of budgets were reduced, and we accepted that and did the best we can. We really want to finish the bog, and I think we will, except probably the signage is going to be a carryover to next year. It's a lot about labor too, volunteer labor, so.
Mark, do you have a wish list of the things that need to be done on the trail system?
Yes.
Okay.
I
So
don't
the
have
budget
that.
could be based on, that wish list laid out over a period of a few years pretty easily.
True.
And does it defend your suggestion that maybe we don't ask for as much money?
The way to defend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And just to remind, we talked about sort of a wetland management fund as another unexpected expense, so.
And that fortunately has been very minimal. However, we should be prepared and we should figure out what we need, because there may be other locations. And we do have periodic culvert blockage and so forth that we seem to end up with a bill for. So, we need to have it available. If we don't use it, we don't use it. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, I think we need to take a look at the percentage of increase in materials, make sure we factor that in as well, because that just seems to be going up and up and up. I don't see any
The other thing
decrease in
is,
that pricing.
is in invasive work. We've always put in, $300-400 for that, and most times not used it. Because of the issues, a lot of that involves chemicals, and, there's not a lot of enthusiasm about using chemicals, so we need to revisit that, and I know Dawn's interested in that, not just knotweed, but, other things as well. Easy, buddy. Okay. So if anyone sees any big needs, let us know. Generally, Mark, trails are in pretty good shape. There is work needed on Kitticleave and Clough. Okay. So other than that, we don't have any major bridge replacements or anything like that coming up in the next year or so.
I have,
At least-
two bridge repairs on my project list, but
Okay.
no replacements.
Okay. Good.
Any need for any new bridges?
Well, I'm working in Clark Pond on walkways, boardwalks, but not bridges.
Okay.
Okay, I'm thinking, I was on Dura Crockett yesterday, and, you have to, first of all, there's no water flowing along Dura Crockett, none. There's just some pools, and I've never seen this before. But I know that before you get up to the aluminum bridge, you have to cross that stream twice. And when the water is flowing, that can be a potentially treacherous crossing. So I'm not sure what you want to do. You don't want to pockmark that area with bridges, but there are a couple of tricky crossings that you have to make to walk that trail. So I don't know whether you've given that a close look or not.
That's on my list, and you might not have noticed, but I tried a stepping stone approach in there, and it's still tricky.
Yeah,
So, yeah, those are on my radar.
but that would be new construction. And,
I just throw it out there, what would you think about a rope, just a rope handrail to help
yeah,
folks
I've
across?
thought about that, and anchor it somehow on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Or rope swing.
A zip line.
Okay. Anything else? Other business? Our next meeting is scheduled for October 16th. Apparently, there was a typo on the calendar that got fixed. Okay.
Bob, I do have one
Yes.
more thing. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to report that glossy buckthorn is winning the battle in Kitticleave Clough. And I don't have any remediation recommendations, but just to report that if the trend continues, that swamp's going to be overrun with glossy buckthorn,
What swamp?
Kidder Cleveland clefts,
And what are you calling it?
glossy buckthorn.
And Mark, generally, that is just ripped up and to get the roots out?
I don't know.
Okay.
But, it's so thick in there that, even if we were to do something right along the trail, the rest of the swamp is, very difficult, would be very difficult to work in there.
Would it make sense to contact Tim Fleury, see if he'd come over and take a look?
Sure,
Suggestions?
sure.
I don't know.
I can do that.
Yeah? Anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 10:12 a.m. Wow. Okay.